This is the Gomaluku podcast.
This whole ASMR thing, which is like this whole whispering thing in the microphone, it's kind of new thing that a lot of people do. It's not my thing. Which I tried it once, just for fun, not in a podcast, just for fun, and yeah, it sounds me very creepy. Like I'm a creep, like I'm a stalker kind of guy. So like, I try to stay away from whispering into the microphone. Definitely in a podcast, 100%. So if I was almost going to do that again, but tell me again, like, because I think there's not many people that are doing what we're doing, which is still using a notebook to take notes. It is. Yeah, I mean, like I go through a lot of notebooks because I write. Like, how do you do it? Like I do like writing bullet point things. I draw a lot as well to process things. How about you?
Well, this is I just use standard composition books. I have a journal, but I end up using just my notebooks they end up being my journals. And this is a new one I started. So I was writing a speech for somebody. So that's all that's in this one so far.
Yeah.
And then now this. So I have stacks of them, and they're just full of research. I mean, reading articles and taking notes and doodles, poems.
And do you have like one subject, one notebook, or is this just like one journal kind of thing that you like register almost everything?
I try. I think I can get really organized and be like, okay, this is for a literature review, or this one is for articles, and this one, no, I can't. They usually end up just being, it's just one, and it goes through all the way through. But I just make sure that I always write the date on the page. So that's my big thing. As long as I write the date, and then I have a little technique for, like, if it's my own personal thought, like a little, thing that I do next to my thoughts, so I don't confuse it for somebody else's. And
okay.
If I'm writing something, I want to make sure I give proper credit to somebody, and but also if it's my own thought, because sometimes you read it and you're like, who said that? Did I say that? Or did Ghazali say that? Like, I don't remember. So I just make sure I note.
I think I'm going through 3 notebooks. One is like a journaling. So a journal. I try to journal, and I have different approaches for journaling. At first, I started like writing as it was a diary, as in, like, this is happening, this is happening, this is what caused by it, and everything else. And I don't know, like, and at some point, I just had difficulties keeping up journaling, because I always had that feeling, oh shoot, now I have to like end of the day or start end of the day, I have to like, oh man, I now have to like recapture the entire day again, which is fine, but like trying to put that into words, and there's some my short-term memories sometimes, like it leaves me, it abandons me. So, and then I shifted into like doing like log style, as in, all right, if something happens and I have to log it out, it's just write it down, and whatever comes up in my head, I just write it down. And then it is almost like Star Trek, what they do, like captain's log, blah 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 blah, and then and then the next scene something happens, like captain's log or supplemental, blah 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 blah. He says, no, I'm not. I write it down though. I don't look into the camera and record it. But yeah, this is my journal, and then there's one for for the podcast, and then there's one for UN negotiations. So in every meeting that I go to, which I tried to use one notebook for climate change, one notebook for human rights, one notebook for biodiversity, which actually meant that I would be bringing like 15 notebooks every time I went to the UN. So that wasn't helpful at all, because you could like you'd see me like
your big old briefcase.
It's a backpack. It's a huge backpack that I will be carrying around. Like, yeah, and on top of that, you have your laptop and everything else. So stepped away from that and just use one notebook, and which is way more helpful anyway, because it makes you connect. You know, like if you like, cause so this similar to what you do. I just write down the date, but also the type of meeting that I'm in, so that if I write in there, and I write it in my own words, so I don't think that any UN negotiator wants to read my notebooks, because I put it into words that I understand it, and then yeah. So sometimes I can like scroll back to different pages. I'm like, oh, hold on, we talked about this in a different process, and my own really my own thoughts about things. I do like write brackets around it. All right, yeah, this is one takeaway or something that I really need to focus on. So sometimes I just like from time to time I just scroll back into the whole thing, through the whole notebook, and then like only scan for these brackets. Or like, or what am I missing? Is there something that I forgot to follow up on, or it is. Yeah, it's I like notebooks like you. Like I text a lot. Like my thumbs are having, I don't know, carpal tunnel syndrome with WhatsApp and everything else. But to really being able to process things, it is writing it has become a skill, I think, that a lot of people are losing because of these things and yeah, keyboards and everything else. So
it takes practice, though. Writing takes practice. I have my morning writing time, which is usually just, really early in the morning when I wake up, 4:30ish, usually by 5, making coffee and just sitting in the kitchen when it's nice and quiet and writing whatever. Sometimes I write letters to people. Sometimes send them, don't send them.
Oh, okay.
Like however it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Is that part of your routine? Because you get up at 4:30 in the morning or 5, and then take us to
my brain just starts like going. I have to do something. So
okay.
Usually that's just when everything just starts coming out. So
right.
Yeah.
And you just write what that's
just write.
Cool.
Just write. Like I mean, for me, because by about 8:00 at the latest, my kids are up, and then the day goes, and I might not have like good solid hours to just write. So
is it also a way of priming yourself for the day, as it is like 4:30 until 8 until your kids wake up? That's Brooke time. Priming yourself a little bit, because that's the idea that I get.
Yeah, and it's not like conscious. It's not like I wake up and I'm like, okay, now it's time for me to write. And no, it's just it just is sort of this habit. And I have a little corner in the kitchen with a lamp, and I just like to sit there and have my coffee and just write. And
do you have like some kind of like a thought process, as in how, because I can imagine that it's hard to start writing. I think that's the most difficult part, like what the thought process is, or to write.
I think it's just whatever is coming up in my mind in the morning is usually, I guess, what was going on the day before, or reflecting. Sometimes it's deep, sometimes it's not deep at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
it's
sometimes it's me
things,
writing my prayers, like I also, like, writing is just how I can express myself better. So sometimes I'm writing prayers in the morning, and really just whatever comes out. I think it's just what happens. Nothing conscious. Not usually.
That's amazing though. And because you mentioned it like briefly just now, or like just now a couple of minutes ago, is that which kind of intrigues me, is that you said you were writing a speech for someone.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, because I'm in awe of people that know how to write speeches, and are speech write that know how to write speeches, or are speech writers. So do you do that a lot? Is that what you usually do, or is it just like one time off, like, hey, I can do it for you?
No, sometimes I'm in awe that people ask me to write speeches for them, because it just seems odd. But I don't know. I really like doing it, because I don't really want to give speeches, but I like being able to make a story with these words, and then see how the person who'll deliver it might change it to make it more them, and then
And
it's not something most people know about Ghazali, but then I like sitting back and going, I wrote that speech. Oh, I wrote that speech.
Okay. Is there any speech that you could point towards, like, hey, I had a hand in it? Not that, that you were like, that's online, or something that you can point to? Is that
No, I don't really like. I think that's the whole point of helping people write speeches, is that
okay,
they're able to, they're able to whatever, paint this story, because they always put their own spin on it, but it's their speech. It's not, and most people have speech writers, right? So
oh yeah, like even people that you assume that they do not need speech writers, they have speech writers. It is just, it's and and any when you write speeches, or when you think about writing a speech, what do you think about, as in points of inspiration, or like, oh man, this is a very good speech that I heard or read, or watched, or the way that this person delivered it, like any who do you try to embody in a way, if any?
I think I just really, because they're all Pacific related, so I guess I just I sort of am able to put myself in the audience as a foreigner, and like, what do I want other foreigners? How do I want them to feel about the Pacific, about this, whatever the topic is, if it's about oceans or nuclear or what have you? Like, what is it that I want the audience to listen to and become moved by, like moved to action? And so I think that's what I do, is I'm able to see both sides of it and have enough background in more Marshallese culture, but Pacifica, that I can sort of finesse some of the story to make
Mm-hmm.
it I want the audience to be moved, and then thinking about who the speaker is and what are their strengths. Is it their booming voice? Is it their demeanor? What is it that will be able to draw in the audience a bit more? I guess
Right.
I really like doing that.
And because it's just, like I said, it's a super fascinating part of it, because not of it, but it is a super fascinating aspect of diplomacy and advocacy in a bit. And I think it is a very underestimated skill. What I believe. Obviously, in politics, it is bread and butter for a lot of people, and a lot of people make their living out of it. In terms of within my own experiences in the indigenous movement, I think there's a lot more grounds that we can cover. As in, there's a lot. There's a lot that we can still learn as individuals, as in speech writing, as in trying to get to that flow, that story, telling your story, and then being able to like make it as simple as an equation. As you start with a story, and then you the natural goal or endpoint would be that, like you said, like move them to something, to an action, like a call to action, and in a way that it sounds like common sense. It's like, oh yeah, it's not just like, oh, I have to think about it, but it's like, it sounds like the ability to make something very complex understandable, and in a way that the call to action sounds like, yeah, this makes sense. This makes sense, and that people, not that's a skill, but also like using words and pace, and like using oratory skills, or training their oratory skills to make people not only do the call to action, but also feel super motivated to do it. Like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, like that. Let's get that feeling, right? That's yeah, like it's funny,
And then, and
actually.
at the same time, like, okay, so if I say I want how I perceive the Westerners in the audience to hear, but then what about the Pacific Islanders in the audience? Like, I want them to feel proud of, whatever the topic is, if it's, their own history, because so often these speeches are very, geared, very westernized, and
Yeah.
so making sure that the Pacific culture is very elevated, and that is what is at the very forefront of it. So
Yeah, good. I think on that point, then you are in a, at least how I look at it, in a super advantageous position, right? As in, like, you live on the Marshall Islands for God knows how long, and also like able to see things from a non-Pacific, Western perspective, right? So I think is that what, why people come to you? This is a very weird question.
well, so I have to rearrange myself. It's late here. Cover myself with my blanket. It's I honestly, sometimes I really like the last speech. I was really shocked that they came to me to work on the speech, and sometimes I'm confused. Like, why are they asking me? But I guess the speeches are good, and they appreciate them. So, but a lot of times I'm called in like last minute. They had a speech, they didn't like it, and Brooke, can you look at this? And I look at it and I have to just sort of drop everything and work on a speech. But I don't know. It's something that I would like to do more of, but it definitely it takes a lot because it's I'm a perfectionist. And I really want to make sure and it's usually for somebody in a position of leadership. So I'm very, very aware that the words that they use, that they've got to come off, being as amazing as they are. Like I really, I take a lot of that. I just take that very to heart of, this is how our leader is going to look to the outside world, to anybody, if it's just here. But making sure that the words that I put together, help them present themselves as the amazing person they are.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely 100% right. And from my own experiences, I've written a lot of speeches for other people as well. And when people come to me last minute, I think I try to make as minimal as changes as I can, because and you just want to hear your thoughts on it, if that's a good approach or not, or if you would have done it differently. Minimal changes as in rearrange some words, some paragraphs, make it sure that there's a certain flow, that it reads better, or that it reads better, and that you can pronounce it better. Because I did it once. Somebody gave me like last minute, and there was like a day before the statement. All right, yeah, I don't like it. You go over it and you change it, make all the changes that you need, all the changes that you want. And I just created this whole new statement based off the old statement. And this person read it, and it sounded so inauthentic. It sounded so it made sense, and it sounded as any statement you would want to listen to, but it wasn't that person. So so it is. So that's how I maybe got scared a little bit about making these big changes in last minute speeches, because I know, like, I don't know you that well to choose the right words that you like to use, and where you use commas and punctuation better. That I just try to stay stay within the framework of the original speech. Like, all right, I think I get the idea of where you want to go to, how you talk, how you speak, and I try to make minimal changes. Ever had that experience, or is this a right approach, or am I full of it?
I think you're a lawyer.
Oh, shoot.
I think that's what it is. You're a lawyer.
That's what it is. Oh, man. And here I thought it was just insecurity.
No, you're a lawyer.
Oh.
I don't know. I just try to make the speeches, and even in my writing, I guess, see, I'm kind of like my academic writing, that I got a bit afraid of sharing anymore, because I want it to be accessible.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to make the language accessible. And I mean, I can throw out some academic words for you, but that then would, that alienates the people that I want to read it. Like, I want academic, I want speeches, I want all of this information to be accessible. And so I guess I approach the speech writing the same way, as just trying to make what comes out accessible to the audience and not fill it with.
Right. Yeah. And a little bit thrown off with like you're a lawyer, because I really thought it was something else.
It's not in a negative way at all. It's not that. It's just, you're a lawyer, so your mind thinks that way. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Apparently, yeah. It is. And also, like, and maybe, oh man, like, yeah, it's like this. I had to like retrace all my thoughts on this, actually, because you said that. It's crazy, because I also approach speech writing with a certain structure, because I need a process. Because if I don't have a process, I just like start with, all right, hello everyone, and then I'll just like and that's what frustrates me a lot, is that I start with intro word one, and you start writing, and then halfway first paragraph, you're like, yeah, this is not it, and you just delete everything, and you just go back to starting a whole new way, or whatever, and you lose a lot of time on that. So I use a structure. Do you use a structure or process to, from scratch, to write a speech or a statement? Is there something that you have in your mind, consciously or unconsciously, that you're like, all right, this is the flow that I use to write, or is this the flow that I want to manifest in that speech?
Before I answer that, can I just tell my kids to go to sleep, because it's late past their bedtime? Hold on. I'm just gonna mute you for just a second.
That's okay. I'll go mute. Yes, this is fun.
That was my mom face speech there. Good thing you are muted.
The funny thing is like, it's not like the mute thing, but like you put your glasses, like you tilted it a little bit down on your nose, or like
so took off the headphone. I got serious, man. And
this is like, all right, this is no kidding around. This is mom mode.
And they don't buy it. They don't buy it. That's the maybe if I was more lawyerly, they would maybe not.
I don't know, like, because lawyerly would be like point counterpoint, and you don't want to go into that. It is like, like it is.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I already get that a lot from the 12-year-old.
You don't want to go through that. And how is Ati? Like, we did not. Yeah, like after my birthday episode, we didn't do a follow-up call or conversation. But how is he doing?
He's good. He's he just matures so quickly. So one of the things around Nuclear Victims Day, he pointed it out. I got the newspaper, and he was reading the newspaper first while we were driving, and he's like, oh, look, this store is having a Nuclear Victims Day sale. Oh, look, they even put a picture of this bomb. He's like, Mom, is this the Bravo shot? I'm like, oh, no, that's the Baker shot. And he's like, look, they're having a sale on cell phones, or look, here, this store's having, and then people are saying Happy Nuclear Victims Day. And there will be special races for Nuclear Victims Day. And he's 12. And he's like, what is this? Happy Nuclear Victims Day. What's happy about this? Do these people not know this is a day of protest? It's
Yeah.
a day of protest. We should be holding signs outside of the US Embassy, but no, everybody's having like sales and nice little conversations. And so I guess I like that my 12-year-old is like that.
Is it that obvious on the Marshall Islands that, or like that? It's not obvious. It's not the right word, but like it sounds really weird if you say like Happy Nuclear Victims Day. Is like
Yeah. They say that. Literally, it was in the paper, and people will, because it's a public holiday, it doesn't mean it's a festive day. Like, it's not. I mean, I remember many, many years ago when a lot of the elders were still alive and they would protest. Like, there would be old people with homemade signs out in front of the US Embassy. There would be, there was this one place where they would have the, like, you know, commemoration ceremony or something, and the elders would be there with their signs always. And then it turned into like fluff of like, you know,
what changed? What created that change, or what influenced that change, you think?
Honestly, I've been thinking about that. What, maybe because people passed away, maybe because political administrations were nicey with the US. People in positions of influence were, you know, they really want to, I don't know. People here really like the United States. And there's this like, I don't know. I'm trying to track down that key point, because I remember when Ati was a baby and going, and you know, we'd have a candlelight, you know, vigil inside, and then all the old people would have their signs outside, and the ambassador, you know, you just flip them off basically. And then we got this one ambassador, this guy that like everybody just was nice to him. I don't understand. We drove past the US Embassy on Monday and we flipped off the US Embassy.
Right, yeah.
I honked my horn and all three of us drove by it. You know, that's fine. I want my kids to be able to feel free to do that, because, you know, that's the country that made them displaced. So it's a day of protest. And here everybody is like sitting and listening to nice speeches and celebrating.
And so there's so people that listen and understand a little bit is no picket lines or banners whatsoever on at all on Nuclear Victim Day.
Nah, well, this one I don't go to them anymore because I get really upset. So I don't know, but I mean, it's not like there's a big call for everybody come and let's protest for justice against the country that did this.
Yeah.
Because the last time I did that all by myself, everybody was like, "Oh my God, she just told off the U.S. ambassador in public." Like, you know, they don't. There's something of people not wanting to make waves. I'm not quite sure.
Is there something to say about continuation of colonization that is like still feel colonized about that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, and it's ramping up. And in many ways. I mean, we still have the nuclear or the missile base in Kwajalein, and the U.S. is now there's an island near here to Majuro, and they are courting the U.S. military to use their atoll as another military installation. Like, come and see our island and see if you would like to use this as another military base. It's insane.
Yeah, especially when you know what the U.S. military has done in the past, in terms of, because it's not just, hey, um, we're gonna build a U.S. base, or we're going to build a, like, I don't know, like a harbor or an airstrip or whatever. No, they did nuclear testing, so which is yeah, like the ultimate thing that you can do to kill people, and is, and basically also why I wanted to talk to you about, because there is so little that I know about it. There was this event that you were part of, and yeah, I just and which triggered me, like, yeah, I don't know absolutely anything about it, as in, well, not absolutely anything, but like it is, how should I say it? I just felt that there was a huge gap, a huge void. Like, there was this nuclear ban treaty that you were talking about. I'm like, yeah, there's just so much more that I wanted to know about. So I just wanted to, amongst other reasons, obviously, to get you on the show. Maybe I should have started with that. So thank you for getting on the show. We're half an hour in. We're almost 1 hour in. I'm just now starting to, like, hey, thank you so much. But well, better late than never, obviously.
Is this your introduction now?
Man, yeah, it sucks. I just learned that I don't like introductions, as in every conversation that I go into, like, we don't start with introductions. It's like, yeah, you just start off with something and you just go with it. I've been in some conversations even that had a very good conversation, and by the end of it, didn't know that the other person's name, or can't remember that person's name, and which is, in all honesty, that's all on me. That's my fault. Not showing any interest, or like not trying to create that bond, link, whatever you want to call it. But
that's okay. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, you were asking me for my preferred bio. I was like, please, this is really, I'm having an identity crisis right now. I can't give anybody a bio. Like, I don't know what I don't really know how to sum up who I am. So going over introductions, that's fine. Just talk and
thank you so much. And the thing is, with preferred bio is more as in, like, what, because some people send me like an entire document. I'm like, because I just want to, like, give people like a nutshell version of you, so they can put the conversation into the right context, which is it the only thing that a bio does. It establishes credibility. True. And that's the only thing that it does. That's how I think about it. This only thing why people are interested in bios, resumes, and everything. They want to see, like, what you're talking about, that it comes from a position of credibility or authority.
Yeah.
And in my view, like listen to the story first. You listen to what he or she or they have to say, and then use that as part of your knowledge palace. Like try to consume as much knowledge as possible from different angles, different views, different layers of society, with or without authority or credibility, but make up your own mind about things instead of like, oh yeah, this person is a PhD student, or this person is collects garbage in a local neighborhood. Like they're both have the right to an opinion. Both have thoughts about things. Listen to the opinion first. Listen to what they have to say first, and and let that be let argument be the merit of like something that you want to take away from the conversation, and not like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna level this higher than the other because that person went to Harvard or I don't know, Phoenix University, or I don't know if that's even a university. I think it's online. Like it is. Uh, yeah. So some people prefer sending a bio is a very long-winded way of saying it. Some people prefer a bio, sending a bio, and I'll post it. If other people are not comfortable with it, which is fine as well. I just like, oh hey, had an awesome conversation with Brooke. We started talking about note taking. So like the first 10 minutes, that's on you. That's for you. The second 10 minutes is what was on speech writing. That's going, and then when we blast it off into like, no pun intended, into like nuclear nuclear ban treaty and nuclear weapons. Yeah, sorry. Like this. That's how my mind goes. I think of that. That's also what I use in speech writing as well. It's like these words that come natural when you think about a certain topic. Like, so I do like I always start with a word association. I'm like, well, what words do people associate with this topic? And that's what I learned from an artist, Inuk artist, Aka Neviana. She's from Inuit from Greenland, and she told me that like I just write down some words that come up into my mind that associate with a particular topic, and then put it away. And then then she starts to meditate in a way on it. All right, yeah, and then that's how she builds her poems, because she's super amazing in poetry and everything else in artistic expression of thoughts, emotions, and feelings. So that's at least one way to start things. So yeah, that's how I come up with blast off. That definitely no pun intended. Yeah, no pun intended. Yeah.
Pun intended.
Pun intended. Yes. Anyway, shoot. And here we are again, like trying to circle back to circle around introduction and then go back to nuclear. Because could you give the in your own experiences what you've learned, what you know, or and willing to share about like the the nuclear, I want to say discussion, but it is more than that. Like the how big of an impact nuclear testing has made by the United States. Because is it only the United States, or is it other countries as well? Because I believe France has also done some weird shit.
Oh yeah, in the Pacific, I mean Australia, New Zealand, France, the United States, UK. But here in the Marshalls, these were U.S. nuclear and thermonuclear tests.
Yeah. And how many tests have they done that you know in the past?
Well, here in the Marshalls, technically 67. It was actually 68 because there was one nuclear test that was done 8 miles north of Eniwetok. So somehow they count that as not being in the Marshall Islands.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were the nuclear tests that they did in Johnston Atoll. and those were high atmospheric tests, and that stuff all blew this way. And then everything they dumped into the ocean, all those currents come this way. All of those wind patterns, they come this way.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, and then Kiribati as well, but really those ones there in Johnston. So the ones here in the Marshalls, 67, 68, 43 of those were done in Innuitak. The rest were in Bikini.
Yeah, and yeah, some, which is the most more known around the world, the testing on Bikini Islands.
Yeah.
But not like, so there's this perception out there that people thought like these countries did like one or two nuclear tests in the Pacific, in the islands, but it's way more than that. And I wonder,
more than 300. More than 300 were done in the Pacific.
That's insane.
And it didn't stop until 1996. From 1946 until 1996, there were nuclear weapons being detonated here. Like, that's just, I mean, in a 50-year period, it's just insane. Like, here in the Marshalls, if you add up all of the weight of all of the bombs, it's the equivalent of 1.6 Hiroshima bombs every single day for 12 years. Every day, like, basically 2 Hiroshimas going off. And then the thing here, because I've talked to people from like very far away atolls, that they remember when the bombs would go off, because, I mean, the earth is curved, right? And these bombs would go off and the sound would just bounce and it would echo. So you'd hear this for hours and hours. They would detonate a bomb and you would just hear this like ping pong back and forth. Boom, 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 for hours. Like that's now, I mean, just imagine that. Like, I mean, that on top of it. I mean, the sounds and it's just unreal. It's unreal.
And there was no didn't the US military in any way, shape, or form alert you, or hey guys, by the way, next door we're going to detonate, I don't know, a nuclear bomb, so you might want to close some doors and your windows? Anything along those lines? Anything that they did to
why would
people?
they do would they do that? You know, they that was part of the experiment. Like, these were scientific experiments. So they were testing not only the devices themselves, but they were testing what happened afterward.
Yeah.
And what was the impact on, I mean, there are just hundreds upon hundreds and hundreds of scientific studies surrounding the nuclear tests. This was big time research. So they were studying the impacts on corals. They were studying the impacts on, you know, marine life, animals. They had islands where they would breed animals here and then test on them. And then, of course, they were testing on people. Like, what are these impacts on people? That's, I mean, that was Project 4.1, but they're still getting data on people. they still have the whole body count machines. If you're on Eniwetok and you go to the Njebi Islands and you come back to Eniwetok, you have to get a whole body count. If you come back from Bikini to Majuro, you have to do a whole body count.
What's the body count so that people understand?
For whose benefit is this? It's this seat, and you're supposed to get them done like regularly if you're from those islands.
Mm-hmm.
So you sit in this machine thing. It's like I guess like an X-ray, and it checks for what, cesium and what? I'd have to look. It's been a long time since I had a whole body count. But it, you know, for whose benefit? Because they don't really tell you. They're like, oh yeah, you've got elevated levels of this and you're okay. So then why did you, like, whose benefit is this for? And then they will take like stool and urine samples from people to test for plutonium, but you never get the results back. And then they tell you, oh, well, you have to go online. Here's the website, and then you go here, and here's your number so you can find out your levels. Okay, so if I live on an outer island and I don't have any internet, how am I going to access my own data?
Yeah.
Who is this for? And then what is this? What is it for? For whose purpose? To gather data on long-term low-dose exposure to radiation?
Mm-hmm.
And what do they need that for?
Are there any
NASA?
thoughts or theories that are going around, like, or that are, like about the application of these results of these tests?
Well,
of the
I
body
mean,
count,
this
for
is the
example.
thing. Like, there aren't a lot of people who know about this stuff or who are putting all the pieces together. But, you know, there's Operation Gabriel and Operation Sunshine and the there's this 1 million person research project where they gather all this data on people on the impacts of radiation exposure. And, you know, there's parts of it, and I'm sure people are like, oh, this is all conspiracy stuff. But I mean, there's some crazy stuff. We're talking nuclear weapons here.
Yeah.
It's insane. And then it's like, the more you know, the more insane it is. Like, it's just, you cannot believe this stuff is real. But part of the data that they use is for NASA. Because what do they fuel anything with for NASA? They're not using diesel.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
What's going to burn? So, and then also for nuclear submarines. Like, what are these impacts on people who will be in close proximity to nuclear fuel? Long-term low-dose exposure to radiation. What are we going to see? Well, all they need to do is they have all the data here from the Marshall Islands.
Yeah.
What are those impacts? Okay, then that's what you're really going to be seeing in people who are working on nuclear submarines, who are on, you know, spacecraft, those types of things. I mean, that's as far-reaching as it goes. It's just, it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing that people chose to take science and use it for evil.
Yeah. It's under the premise of science that they throw it under, right? It is the because we have to do it because of science. It is a catch-all excuse to, and then at what cost? It is mind-blowing to me.
And then there's no recognition. There's no that like, I don't know how to balance this, but like the ocean and the islands and the airspace and the people of the Pacific. And it, being here in the Marshalls, if I can speak more specifically on the Marshalls and, from my children, that it's my children and their heritage are what has provided all of this data. And yet there is no recognition of them as any co-owners of any of this data. It's harvested knowledge and taken out and owned by somebody else. They don't even let the people own their own. That was generated from here.
Yeah.
And I mean, they didn't consent to any of it, but any knowledge that's produced here belongs to the people here.
Yeah.
And yet people are still doing research like that. Still.
It is some. Is there some surely there should be should be some document or whatever that explains why the hell they're doing this on the Marshall Islands and everywhere else. I don't know. Is there any yeah, this is.
Well, when they started it, they said it was for the good of mankind.
Yeah, well.
Now, but also imagine the Marshallese people had been under German occupation and then were occupied by Japan, which was brutal. The Japanese were brutal. And then here comes liberation and by the Americans. And then, I mean, literally it's like, and then, people are moved. They're moved from their islands. They've just seen battles. They have been in dugout holes they dug out with coconut shells and covered with coconut fronds and were in their whole families for days. And people come out from this and are expected to make major decisions like, okay, now we need to use your island for the good of mankind, and this is what we're going to do. Like, sorry, I just saw massive battles and have been under occupation for the majority of my life. I really, I can't make a big decision right now. So they were coerced into and just stolen, just straight out. My kid's great-grandfather, I mean, they threatened to kill him if he didn't give up his islands. Well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Here are all these people who are, guns and ships and airplanes, and they're just going to kill you if you don't say, okay, you can take my islands. Like, you can only resist for so long. And there was no prior and informed consent.
No, definitely not.
Because who cares? Really, it's this mindset of, I mean, Henry Kissinger famously said, there's 50,000 people out there. Who gives a damn?
He said that?
He literally said that in a meeting. Really, there's a bunch of brown people out there. Who cares? Who cares? Nobody's going to know anyway, right?
And yeah, I'm really trying to compute all this, as it's such a. You'd think, right, that this would yeah, this you read up, they would talk you on probably in school, middle, in grade school, whatever. This happened so once or twice, but this is like a something that has happened not once or twice, but until the late what was it, 20th century. Oh, that was 20th, 21st. I can't remember. Not 1996, was it?
Yeah.
That and that it is, yeah, like it's mind-boggling to me still, like why is the fate and the livelihoods of a peoples, like it doesn't matter if it's 5,500,000 or 50,000, it's a peoples you're dealing with. The people do live there. It's their home. Like I don't go into your home and piss all over the place, or create a fire, or like spread rat poisoning in your house. I don't do that. Like why? So why would someone else do that in somebody else's home just because you're a superpower? You know, like because you can. And then it is blackmailing, not blackmail. Yeah, it is forcing. Yeah, the people. So like your children's great grandfather into making a decision that he's not coming out of colonization of the Japanese and the Germans. It's there were no. Yeah, I'm not a doctor, but I would assume that like you're not in that mental place, to be able to do that, because it's because of that. Man, it
No.
is. Yeah.
It's and that I think, like, there's always that seems to be left out all the time of discussions. When people talk about nuclear, like, it didn't just happen out of thin air. These bombs didn't just suddenly appear.
Mm-hmm.
And that the trauma that people had been experiencing already, blackbirding and all of those just horrible, gross things of imperialism.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of it, nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
But that people are still here. It's just is amazing.
And are you getting a lot of support talking about this on Marshall Islands or outside of it? You have my support 100%. I don't think, yeah, hopefully that counts for something. But like at least on the islands, yeah, because if I put everything into context, if they're celebrating Nuclear Victims Day, then what you're talking about, like it should be the conversation that people should be having, instead of like, there's this holiday sale at I don't know, some clothing shop or McDonald's or whatever. Get a happy nuclear victim day happy meal or whatever. That's not the conversation that should be happening. This is the conversation that should be happening.
So are you asking if I was a part of the Nuclear Victims Day coordinating committee?
No,
I was not. I was not. They forgot. So like, when the Nuclear Commission said they interviewed everybody in the country, all of the NGOs and groups that work with nuclear, they never once talked to me.
And how is that?
They never once, in this very small town.
Yeah.
They never once asked to talk to me.
because you're outspoken, or like it's the way that you talk about it. It makes all the sense in the world, at least to me, that any discussion, dialogue, or commemoration of nuclear victims, or anything that has something to do with nuclear at the Marshall Islands affecting the indigenous peoples, or peoples in general, it makes sense to me that they should be part of that conversation. So how come, like, you were not approached? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, there was a Nuclear Victims Day where the U.S. ambassador stood up, and they say this every year. They talk about how all settlements with the Marshallese people are clear, that, the Marshallese made this sacrifice. We are so grateful for the sacrifice that Marshallese people made. And all claims we have reached full and final settlement.
Mm-hmm.
And with a baby on my hip, I stood up and screamed at the ambassador, knocked chairs over, and said, "It is far from fair and just," and stormed off, and everybody was mad at me.
What?
And I was like, I was so enraged by what the ambassador said. And then I was like, wow, look at how the US is sitting back, and their strategy works. Their strategy works to, like, it's that internal colonization where people aren't wanting anyone to speak up. Like, I'm sorry, you messed with my kids. And I don't care if you're a government with nuclear weapons, you have messed with my children. And I am angry. And I'm not going to sit there and let some dude, spout off this rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
When what he needs to do is apologize to my children and their families. And, maybe it's intimidating because I took care of my kid's grandmother when she was dying of cancer. I've taken care of so many people, and I guess I have that experience, and maybe because I'm white and I speak out about it. And I've been told I don't have any right to speak about it because I'm white. I've literally been told by Marshallese people, I have no right to speak on this. But I've been given the right by my kid's family to speak on this. So it's just, I think, I don't know, maybe it's very confronting for a lot of people, because there are a lot of people here who grew up really not knowing much at all about their own history here.
Mm-hmm.
Not even knowing that, Runit Dome exists, or where is Njebi, or these other things. So maybe it's just really confronting when you have this outspoken white woman who knows a lot more than they do. I don't know. What do you think? Why don't they want me to speak?
Like, I can only imagine, like, what goes into people's heads. But it is like, I'm trying to understand why people would say something like that. Because mostly, like, if you're doing bad things, if you're doing really, really bad things, and if it is your intent to step up for the sole reason for personal gain, then I would say, yeah, like, and that has happened a lot within the indigenous world, where non-indigenous peoples are stepping up that have no affiliation whatsoever with the indigenous community that they claim to represent. And then I've seen it happen on those cases. It's very black and white. Then you can again, no pun intended. It's clear as day that they only have the interest, want to serve their own interest. In this case, it's the total opposite. It is, you have kids that are indigenous, and that you live on the islands. You're part of the community. It's not that it should be validating the way, giving you credibility, but it does give you credibility. So, and that's having established that in my mind, at least, and my thought then veers off asking, all right, so why would people want to say stuff like that about somebody else? And usually, at least in my experience, it is about people that would love to be in your place. They would love to be as fluent about an issue, knowledgeable about an issue, that are indigenous, but they just aren't. Like there are people that would love to be a all-star football player, for example, but they are, their motor skills are not just up to it. The same thing. Like it is, you love to be an activist, but your state of mind, your everything else, it's not there for that. And then you can do two things. You support that person that is in that position, that is doing what you want to be doing, which is what I would call the high road, is what you should be doing. Or
you try to take them out.
Because if I get a shitty life, everyone has to have a shitty life. And that is what mind-boggling to me. Well, there's a lot of things that mind-boggling to me, but definitely that state of mind, that mindset of, hey, there's Brooke. She's doing this. She is very passionate about this issue, because she gave birth to children that are part of the land, and she lives on the land, and she have a connection to the land, and so it would be in the interest of the Marshallese people, or at least the people that are trying to take you down, to say, hey, we support you, because only if you are in that mindset, I am convinced that you have the greater, the just cause in mind. That is you. That's why you do what you do. Anything else is just ego. Anything else is just ego taking over you, and just trying to actually hit pause on everything, and so that you can rise to that level and then hit play again. So up until that point that you are that person that is, because that's a very toxic state of mind, if you think about it, is that as long as I'm not there, as long as I'm not in the capacity of knowledge or passion to talk about it like you do, I have to take you down. Everything has to hit pause. I have to stall everything so that I can rise to the top. There's so many analogies that I used before to make this point come across. It's like building a building. Like if you don't want to build the highest building on Majuro or New York City, for example, there's two ways to do it. or you can just either build your own highest building. You just build it by yourself. And you build yourself up, and that's the right way to do it. Or you can just build your building and take all the other buildings down, so that you become the highest
only
building.
one.
Yeah, become the only one. That's a toxic way of doing it. That's ego. And I think that is something that is not just happening in your case, but it's happening all around the indigenous world, in the indigenous movement, and which, quite frankly, pisses me off. Because in the end, the who loses are the peoples, because it's your ego that you put up front, and not other people's, not the well-being of people. So if there are people, and yeah, if you're doing it and it's justified, at least in my mind. Obviously, I'm not Marshallese, but in my mind, yeah, you could at least giving you or including you in discussions, or sorry, not excluding you from discussions about this. That should be the least thing they could do, because that goes beyond indigenous and non-indigenous, because it is about raising awareness. Like the whole indigenous and non-indigenous issue, it only, for me at least, comes into play when it comes to representation, when it comes to decision making. And then already you have yeah, but that's not the case. This is about raising awareness about something that affects all indigenous peoples in the Pacific, so not just the the Marshall Islands. So you are passionate about it. You know a lot about it. So excluding you, excluding you from that discussion would only diminish the level of that discussion, because you need people need the information, all the information that they can get. They need all viewpoints to make a decision, or to consider things, and excluding people, and
But my viewpoint makes people uncomfortable. I think that's the thing, because it's non-negotiable. Like, the United States needs to atone for what they've done.
Mm-hmm.
It's a non-negotiable. And I don't play nice with the US, with the government. No, I'm not diplomatic with that. There's no diplomacy when it comes to messing with my kids and the stuff that I have seen and the stuff that I know. They weren't diplomatic in their dealings with us here.
I was about to say,
why do we have to be nice to them? I mean, I have taken care of people with horrific cancer and nursed them to their passing because of nuclear weapons. Like, there's no nicety in that. So don't expect me to extend my hand and fake nice with an ambassador. No, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So that makes people uncomfortable. And I call it what it is, I'm not afraid to talk about colonialism. I'm not afraid to talk about those things. And I think those are uncomfortable conversations, and probably more so coming from, an American. It's confronting to them, because all the other Americans, they're not like me. So
yeah, and time for niceties is over if you dropped 300 nuclear bombs in people's backyards.
Yeah.
I would say. So it is, and then again, because that alone should make people furious as a supernova. But then I think you're right on top of it. You're right that it is super uncomfortable for people, as it is a mirror to their makes them insecure. It is a mirror that exposes their vulnerabilities, because they should be being as furious and as passionate as you are. So I think it is more a reflection of them than of you, the way that they respond to how to you, as in like you said, as in excluding you from discussions, or saying like, or saying that, well, you're not, telling you that, you're not Marshallese, so you cannot talk about it. It is all about, makes sense to me, like if you look, as you painted this picture.
However, they invite American researchers who have done nothing but pad their CVs and, pad their tenure with the research they've done here. And yet they're accepted. Literally, like, no ties whatsoever, except that they were here long ago and did research, and now they're an authority, and they're a professor. Well, how did they get their professorship? And do the people who they did their research with, are they co-researchers? Has all that research been translated and then given back to the community? And those are things. So it's a sore spot, but less so now. Maybe like when Ati was younger, when Appa was a baby. Yeah, it was definitely a lot more hurtful. But now, what's it gonna do? Stop me? It's not
I don't think
stop me.
I think it only fuels your passion for things. At least by the way you talk about it, that it only gives you fuel. Actually, because it is. Or am I wrong? Yeah,
I think it does. But look, I promised my children. I made a promise to my children that I will find justice. Like, they don't have grandparents because of nuclear testing. Like, and that includes my mother too, because she was part of gross nuclear experimentation in the US. But I've made a promise to them.
Yeah.
So there's I don't have a choice. And a lot of the people, the other thing, a lot of these people in positions of decision making, they're not in the same position. Not saying, look, all Marshallese people are affected. I think people here in the south of the Marshall Islands, it's more so from Johnston Atoll than from the bombs in the north. But, the ones in the major decision making positions are not the ones from the places, like the people who are displaced. They're not often given the positions to be making the decisions.
Yeah. There's a thought that has gone through my mind, not throughout this conversation, but previous conversations, because previous podcasts I had Leilani on from Guam, also talking about decolonization, and what is emerging in all these conversations is that there's this, and I'm not a doctor, so I should be very careful about saying this, but I think I'm going to invite a doctor on this, is that I have this feeling with my caveat, disclaimer, with my limited knowledge about the whole issue, is that Indigenous peoples have developed this kind of a Stockholm syndrome to like post colonization, or maybe it's still colonized, but it's like Stockholm syndrome. So in this to, for example, the United States, like around the Pacific, that there's this idea of like we you did wrong to us, but now we cannot live without you. So please keep us under your wings. So I think, yeah, I think that is happening right now around the Pacific, not just Pacific, but in many indigenous territories where indigenous peoples are. That there's develops some unconsciously a Stockholm syndrome.
But that is by design colonialism. That is a component of it. Yeah, and by people developing this Stockholm syndrome is the efficacy of colonialism.
Yeah.
But then, what about when people are dealing with intergenerational trauma?
Yeah.
So much trauma. And how do you unpack what is your, like, I mean, I mean, and I think I have to tread very carefully on this as a white person, as an American, but I have to really, it's something that I work very hard to unpack, and it's because I don't want, it's how the trauma is going to come out in my children, trying to find that balance,
Yeah.
So yeah, making sure they don't go into mainstream schools where I think that syndrome is really ingrained.
Yeah.
As one point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it is. I 100% agree. I don't think I'm not negating the fact that we're still not colonized, because colonization is still ongoing. But I'm just thinking about like like Stockholm syndrome. Like there should be, or could be, or maybe there is a method to how do you say, like to get better from that, like that you lose a syndrome, and maybe that if you amplify that at a certain level, that it gives people more of an idea of getting back control of the situation, recognizing what the situation is, and getting back control of their lives, and in that way start to decolonize in their mindset. And I think I still haven't figured out like the right sequence of it, but I think it could be a way. It could be a way about how to decolonize people's mindset, because this is not helping us at all. It is actually creates this illusion of freedom, but it's actually still dependence. Actually, you still depend on people, and especially when you're entertaining the ideas and promises and stories that the United States keep sharing after 300 bombs in the Pacific. It is something that it is, like you said, it is something that it is like a disease that we have to try to fix, or have to heal from, which includes intergenerational trauma, because that is something that we've barely scratched the surface in the entire indigenous world, by the way. The how deeply ingrained these traumas are in our lives. It it informs everything that we do. And I think something that we think that is logical, that's normal to us, it could very well be part of that intergenerational trauma. So I think it's super. What is all right? What can people do? Because I hate to end a roundup, because I don't want to keep you up too long. Yeah, like in your speech, you want to build to something, right? You want to build to a call to action, and there's a lot of passion in there's a lot of fire in there. What is that? Yeah, you would like people to do, to research anything that comes to your mind as a takeaway from this conversation?
I should have written my own speech before we started.
Oh, well, it is.
I'm so sorry. I didn't do my homework. No.
Oh, no. Again, this is a conversation. This is not a.
No, I think, I don't know. Since we've been talking, I keep thinking about like the beach, where the boys' house is, and like way long time ago, before the Americans came. Actually, Eniwetok was one of the highest, I think, if the highest point in the Marshall Islands. It was like 7 meters above sea level. And then, after the bomb testing, the US flattened it. But there's a little incline. And every evening I would sit on the beach and have my coffee. And that was always my thing. And like every evening I would sit, and like, it's so beautiful. Like, it's just unbelievably beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And my mind would automatically go back to these stories of when they did the bomb tests, it would suck out all the water of the lagoon. Like, you've seen those pictures. I mean, that's all water and coral and like even boats, like, and so it would suck the water out of the lagoon sometimes a mile or more out. Like, and it would be for such a prolonged period of time that the military people would go and like drive their jeeps on the dry lagoon bed. Like, I would just sit there and just watch and just think, really, they did that here over and over again? Like, this is somebody's home. And they didn't care.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, is just, and you mentioned it earlier, that these are people, and these are their homes, and these are people's families. And I don't know. I mean, it's my kids, it's their family, like, but these are people that I care about. These are people who have taken care of me. And I think, as people research and as people talk about it, have conversations, but not fetishize it. That's hard to say. Or exoticize it, or, don't.
What do you mean by that, by the way? Yeah, I can't even fetishize it or exoticize it. What should people be aware of once they start talking or researching about nuclear testing in the Pacific or Marshall Islands? What should people be aware of?
Just, like, when people talk about it, to always keep in mind that it happened directly to people. It wasn't anything abstract. It wasn't something that was happening over there where you couldn't see it, and it didn't harm you. Like, it directly harmed people, and also that it hasn't ended. The harm is still here. The harm is still ongoing.
Yeah.
It still impacts people. So, in that sense, it's not done. It's not over. So, I think just to, to keep that in mind. And there are people who talk about the nuclear testing, and they, use it for their advantage, whether it's, academically or, journalists. Oh, how many journalists are constantly contacting us, making movies, like all of these things. But it's not, I don't know. It's like people are trying to put some sort of ownership on it. It's this really hard thing that just affects us every single day.
Yeah.
So how can people use that? Learn about it. It's horrible, and it's vile, and it's evil. So make sure that it doesn't happen again. What's then the best way for people who aren't really connected here? And I don't think it's up to, I think really just people can just try to eliminate nuclear weapons. I mean, disarmament in general. Just, if learning about nuclear testing in the Pacific makes you sick, then make it push you to work toward ending all sorts of war.
Yeah.
Demilitarize and, de-weaponize, denuclearize, like, make that your goal.
Is the nuclear ban treaty a step in the right direction, you think?
Most definitely. I mean, I still have...
It's doing enough?
I think it's made huge shifts. It's pushed a moral shift. That all of these countries now, as of January, it entered into force, and that's the moral shift that we needed. And that's something that people have been working toward for decades. So in that sense, yes, but really, how are we going to get rid of all of these nuclear weapons? And then we still have nuclear energy. What are we going to do with all of this uranium?
Yeah.
Except keep it in the ground. But I think that's the thing. If people can be motivated to, if their country hasn't ratified the treaty, to do that we further stigmatize nuclear weapons and countries that have them, and work toward a world free from war, free from militaries that are relying on this industry that has profited off of the loss of our loved ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just love. I mean, like, I mean, really, I don't know. Is that possible? I want the military out of the Pacific. I want the military just done.
Well, there was a time where we didn't need any military. So, like there's so in the end, I think that we can go back to empathy and kindness and all these basic principles of life, I think that we can go back to that. We're very much capable of it. I think it would the reigning idea right now in the world is that we cannot. But I think people ultimately crave that, crave connection and love. There's such so it's stupid because there's a stigma on love right now. It is not easy to talk about love, and whereas it is part of who we are. Empathy is part of who we are. What we do is part of our identity, and so we can go back because it requires discipline. It requires reconditioning ourselves. That's what I think. And it is a process. It's a very long process. I struggle with it still, even though I'm aware of it. I struggle with it still because I just keep feeling myself being pulled back into a mindset of ego, of everything that I try not to be, because it is, yeah, when you've lived all your life conditioned with ego and because everyone's lived with ego, right? Everyone is conditioned that way or trained that way, that that it feels natural, but it isn't. And well, you have your kids, and I think up until a certain age, your kids, like our kids in general, are able to maintain the basic principles of life, actually, and then life kicks in, actually, and then you can call it education or development, or there's a whole host of ways of that recondition you. So I think if you're taught that way, you can also untell your way that way, and then go, because like it is mind-boggling to me that still, that because what this is pretty much and this has been going through my mind as well throughout the whole conversation. This is like a nuclear holocaust that's going on. It's still ongoing, at least, well, not at least, like, the only type of holocaust that we know in general in the world through history is the holocaust that happened in the Second World War. This one, but it had an end. This one is still ongoing. You still see the effects of direct effect of it, of these nuclear tests, and it is why this is not on people's agendas and memory is beyond me still. So that's why I wanted to bring this back up onto my radar. All right, I just want to learn more about it. I want to raise awareness around it, and not talk in general about it, but like talk to someone that knows anything about it. So at least way more than I do. So yeah, this is why I gravitated towards the amazing Brooke. And by all means, you're if ever there's a takeaway for you from this conversation, at least in my view, you're not white. As in, I see you as because we met, for full disclosure, people. I did not reach out to her on Twitter or Google someone, and Brooke popped up. Now we met in Whangarei in 2016, and already over there, she was passionate. Not already there, way before that, but like she was very passionate talking about nuclear victims and the nuclear ban treaty. And there wasn't a nuclear ban treaty back then. It wasn't.
Well, starting to
It's starting, it started to develop, but it wasn't.
Yeah. 2017 is when the resolution came to be. Yeah.
Yeah. So, where was I going with this? Can't remember. This is what I get with my train of thought. I lose the train. I just
It derailed back there.
Derails or step out at some train station and just forget to get back on the train again. White. You're not white. At least in my book, you're there's, to me, because pardon me. Sunburned. No, you're not.
Okay, get back on your train.
Oh yeah, lost the train again. I just see it in the distance. It's dot on the horizon. No, you passionate about something. You're and I can see myself. Sorry, like I have to stop here because I can see myself trying to validate you, which you shouldn't have to validate yourself, or by me, or like it is it is you shouldn't have to validate yourself based on external factors, so that's why I wanted to stop there, because I can feel, because mention all these things as if you meet all these requirements, you're validated as to talk about what you talk about, and you don't have to. I believe, because you're passionate about it, and for those reasons and many more, don't have to call yourself white, because you're not. You're human, and that's first and foremost the most important thing. And I get this a lot, though, by the way, but by quote unquote non-Indigenous people, also not quote unquote non-Indigenous peoples that feel this imposter syndrome, and they have their hearts and minds are in the right place. I haven't talked to them for a very long time. I know them very well. Still, they feel this. They qualify themselves as outsider of or non-Indigenous. So the way that I tell them, well, don't call yourself that. Call yourself a friend or an ally. Put it into like the positive, in the positive framework, and not into the negative. So for me, you're not white. You're a cis. You're a human, and I don't know. It is. I just felt that I need to say that before thanking you for getting on the show, because I know it's late over there. Kids probably already, hopefully, fast asleep.
They are asleep. It is 11:12.
Yeah. So so thank you so much for it's. Oh, by the way, before I end, is there anything? And we always can do another episode. Like, by all means, tell me when and where, and I'll show up. Is there anything that you're like, oh my God, Ghazali, I cannot believe you did not ask me about this. You're such an asshole for not asking me this question. Like, hey, by all means, like it is. I have to ask this because, it is. There's always something that or is it something that you want to say still that you forgot? Like it doesn't have to be like a story or like a thought or something.
No, I don't know. I'm just really grateful. I've had a hard past few days of, life stuff. So it's just been really nice to sit and nado with a friend who's really far away, but now, we're able to just sit and talk, and that's really good. And like, it's just I don't know. I just really value this. This really helped me put some things into perspective, and who knows if one person listens and takes some sort of action, then that's really positive. And if somebody wants to get in touch with me, then you can help them do that. But I don't know. Thanks for letting me unwind and like release some of this stuff, because also after last Monday, Nuclear Victims Day, and then I had stuff going on every single day, there just hasn't been any time to sort of let it all out. And yeah, it's ongoing. And, you know, some days are harder than others. And especially when we have family members that pass away, or, you know, there's just always something. And like in our community, I think you can just trace it all back to nuclear imperialism. Like, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't give people a pass, I think, for making bad decisions. We don't get to blame, you know, nuclear weapons, you know, for bad decisions, but I think it clouds people's decision-making processes, and yeah, it's just something we have to live with. So we've got to find a way to make amends and find justice for our kids. I don't know what that looks like. So yeah, more conversations. But anyway, thanks,
It's a process.
Ghazali.
No, thank you so much. Really appreciate you for getting on the show. And yeah, I think I foresee many more conversations like these in the future. So I'm already looking forward to it. So yeah, appreciate you for taking the time to out of your busy weeks to get on a show. And it's not even a show, it's just a conversation. Man, I just keep saying this is a show.
You want your own show? Okay, give the guy a show. Give the lawyer a show.
I don't want a show. I'm not a comedian or whatever. So yeah, I just call it a show. Whatever. Yeah, all right. I'll call it a show then.
Okay.
Thank you so much, and yeah, we'll talk soon.
Okay. Good
All right.
night.
Good night, good day, and good morning if you're listening, wherever you are, and good night for you. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye bye.